The following is a production of Shark Flight Media. Shark Flight Media. Shark Flight Media. Shark Flight Media.
From mechs to mages or agents to argonauts, this is the world of Chris Kennedy Publishing. This is the CKP Future Books Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the October edition of Future Books. We are here with our hardworking editor and Commander-in-Chief, Chris Kennedy, and we are going to talk about what a wonderful month October is. It's not, we don't have 7 books coming out, but we do have 5, and out of the 5, every one of them seems to be a winner. So we are looking forward to talking about what's coming out, and hope you are as excited as we are. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. We get to talk about the best book I've read this year.
Oh,
today.
wow.
So,
I can't wait till we get to that one. Well, I will tell you that this month has one of the best books I've read this year, and was a total surprise. So we're going to have some interesting conversation this month.
And I'm looking forward to it.
So let's start off with Rob Howell's book, We're Now the Rider. He is finishing up the first 3 books in this new trilogy that he has written. We've been publishing them back to back every month, and this is the 3rd month. Tell us a little bit about it.
This continues the Edward saga. Same main character that everybody's come to know and love. Also, the same folks. He has a new mystery that he has to unravel. That like the others, he's in over his head and hoping that with a little help from his friends, he'll be able to pull it off. If not, well, that's too bad because he's given his word and he's not going to break his word.
This seems like something that we don't see a lot of. I call it noir mystery fantasy.
Yeah, it is. And it's done well. I think he's just about got the next book done too.
Oh boy.
So it'll take, a little bit to get that out, but, he's been working on that and I really enjoyed this book, Where Now the Rider. There is a little more on the magic side here. It hasn't been real magic, heavy, magic's been used. There's been magic in it. But this one gets a little more into the magic. So that's, kind of neat for me. So, like I said, I really enjoyed this book.
Yeah, and I'm real happy for Rob because these 3 books have gotten fantastic covers. They seem to be doing pretty well, and the stories are great. And it's not your traditional just sword and sorcery, magic, orc fantasy. So this is something I'm really happy for Rob for writing and getting out. He should be proud of this.
Absolutely.
Now we're going to go to a book. You said it's the best book you've read this year, the book that you're going to talk about in a minute. This is my favorite book that I have read in a long time. I can't say it's the best one I've read this year, but it's certainly in the top 3. Gunpowder Geishas. And it's set in the Four Horsemen universe, but this is unlike any other Four Horsemen story you have read yet.
It is, and I think you'll be able to tell that just from the cover. The cover has a little bit of a different look to it. It's got some different colors. It's got a lady in a hard suit, not Casper, but a hard suit, and with the Caspers behind there to tie it in. She is Japanese, and her family goes out and gets killed, and she has to figure out who, what, where, when, why, and get revenge. And it is this book has been a while coming. Carolyn and I talked about it at Fantasy a couple of years ago, and she said, "Yeah, I'd really like to write in the Four Horsemen universe." And I said, "Absolutely, love to have you." And we talked about what it might be, and she said, "Hey, can I do this?" Yes. "Hey, can I do that?" Yeah. And we tied it in, and it actually works out really well as a new Phoenix Initiative sort of thing, and brings in some new capabilities, some new, a lot of new things that is neat to kind of keep the series going and bring in some new life to it. So I'm really excited about it.
Well, I agree with everything you said. I want to say that, I harp on covers every month. This is a beautiful, beautiful cover. Unlike anything that we've ever done before at CKP, I've never seen a cover that looks like this one. The story has a really interesting perspective. Every character is super smart, and I can't say enough good things about it. And it takes the Four Horsemen universe in a direction we've not yet seen in the universe, and it's refreshing. It is a great, great book, and we're going to talk more about this later on in the podcast because Carolyn has been kind enough to agree to be interviewed this month. The one thing I will say is, according to her, she has not written military sci-fi before, and you would never know it from the way this book is written. It is amazing.
Yeah, that's something we talked about, back when we were first talking, when we were deciding whether she wanted to do this or not. And she said, I've never done this, but I can. And I said, okay, well, if you know you can, then let's do it.
And I will tell our listeners who are fond of anime, this has an anime vibe to it. I would not say it's an anime story, but it does give you kind of an anime vibe. It has that pace to it, so it's really fast.
And the you'll probably get that from the cover if you're into that at all. The hard suits look like something like. I forget what it's called, Candy something. But there's an anime that's like that uses something similar, in suits. So it's recognizable by people in the know. They're not the same. We didn't rip them off, but it is, somewhat similar to them.
And the last thing I'll say about it is this is one of those books, which I talk about occasionally when we're doing the podcast. This is a book in the Four Horsemen universe that you do not have to have any backstory to enjoy. You can pick this book up and read it. It stands alone by itself. And then if you like it and you like the universe, you've got 90 other choices.
Absolutely. And what I'm looking forward to is some more from her.
Amen.
There needs to be another one, to finish this. The neat characters that you talked about, we need some more from them. There are people that, need to be explored in this book, and it needs more.
Yeah. The only thing we've got to do is get our publisher to have a long, intense conversation with her that 2.5 years is not acceptable. She's going to have to write faster.
Bang out the next one like now.
Yes, yesterday.
You've got till November. Go.
So that's October 6th. Everybody put that on your calendar. Do not miss this book. And then on October 13th, we have another new author to us, Dennis Myers, and he has a new book called RAE Final Assembly, Rise of the Automated Empire. I don't know anything at all about this, so I'm going to leave this in your lap.
Okay. Rise of the Automated Empire is a new series that I picked up, from him. It takes place in a post-scarcity society. I think it's 2432 or something like that. It takes place on the moon. People are living on the moon. They've got everything that they want. There are corporations that have taken over most of everything, with the exception of the moon. The asteroids, the other planets. Earth has had a war and isn't doing too well. They're kind of a hot mess. But Luna kind of leads everything, especially in the fact that they are not involved in the whole corporate thing. And the main character, it starts out she goes flying in one of the flying domes, and ends up getting her picture taken for something that happens. So when they need to form an assembly of people, people all know her and they all vote for her. So even though she's commonplace, doesn't really know a whole lot about anything, she's thrust into the limelight, and she has to figure out how to untangle this thing that's going on. And she may not be the right person for the job, but she's going to give it her all.
I had forgotten you sent me this as a slush submission.
I sure did.
It is a great book. I recommended this book. I just didn't recognize the title. This book reminded me a lot of an updated Podcane of Mars.
I was going to bring that to you after we got done. I was going to say, you've read this story. I don't know why you're saying you don't know it, but
yes. But it is. It's very much an updated Podcane of Mars. If you enjoyed Podcane of Mars, this will be a book you will tremendously enjoy. The girl has greatness thrust upon her. She is smarter than most people give her credit for, and by a series of events that could not be planned, she ends up in a position of power and authority and does a great job with it. This is a great book. Strongly recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I first started it, I wasn't sure that, I was going to like it, but I had it on good authority, that it was a really good read, and I really got into it. And I was like, wow, this is kind of different than, what we normally do, but I really like it.
It was. It's a great story. Yeah,
absolutely.
So, yes, strongly recommend. Sorry, guys, I was wrong. I read a lot of books. Then on October 20th, another book that we've been looking forward to, which once again has a beautiful cover. I do not know what Chris is paying these artists, but my God, they're getting better every month. We have Echoes of ISSEL, which is by D.T. Reed, which is the second book in the Ganwald series. And, we had her on a month ago. She is one of our newer authors who has a really fresh, different voice. She writes unlike anybody else that is associated with CKP, and her perspective is wonderful. So,
absolutely.
I believe you have a few comments about this book.
Well, last year, she was writing The Seventh Shaman, which she's going to return to here. Actually, she's already working on the fifth book, to Seventh Shaman right now. And I said that the second book in that series was the best book I read last year. Well, the second book in this series, of which Echoes of ISSEL is the best book that I've read this year. It is, I don't want to spoil things with it, but I will tell you that it is. It's really emotional. It gives you a good gut punch. And I really just thought that this was great. Echoes of ISSEL carries on where Ganwald's Child left off. And if you missed Ganwald's Child last week, shame on you. Run out and get it because you'll want to read that. So, it's a great book on its own, and then you get the best book of the year in Chris's estimation anyway. The series is actually the Sergey Chronicles if you're looking for it online. Not Ganwald. That just is the name of the first book.
Yeah. I call it Ganwald because it's the first book, and that's how it's stuck in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is if you missed Ganwald's Child, a woman and her son ended up on this planet. They were avoiding slavers. Raised kind of with the indigenous people that weren't tech savvy, and now they're trying to integrate back into society again. Oh, by the way, her husband is the head of the United Special Forces. He's an admiral. So he's got a lot that's going on, and he's got to try and rejoin with his wife and the child that he hasn't seen since he was just a couple of years old. Now he's 19 or 20, and has been told that his dad is awful. So he's got to try and win him over, reestablish ties with his wife, and oh, by the way, save the universe.
I'm a huge fan of D.T. Reed. In my opinion, she is the CKP Louis Bujold. So anything that she writes is going to be great. And this book is worth buying for the cover alone, and you get the story for free.
It's another J. Caleb design book, and Jake is doing just wonderful for us. He's done a number of covers, and I've loved them all.
Well, yeah, he's a true huge talent. So I can't say enough good things. October is a great month for CKP, and then we're going to wrap up the month of October with a new Salvage title novel, Salvage Search, by David Allen Jones. So I have not heard anything about this one, so tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. David Allen Jones did a book prior to this in the Salvage title universe, Salvage Mind. And it has been probably 3 years. I think it's been a while since it came out. And he was like, "Hey, I meant to write more on this." And I said, "Yeah, you kind of left it kind of hanging open." And he said, "Would you mind if I did?" And I said, "No, we'd love to have that." So he's taking it on, and folks may need to go back and catch up a little bit on some of the characters, and they may not. But another great story from him. Just takes the characters that he had in the first book and moves them more firmly into the Salvage title universe, which. I didn't see if the Hollywood strike ended. They were looking like they had almost agreed when I looked last Friday, and it would be nice because the Salvage title movies are all being held up by the writers' strike. So
we need to get them off a strike so we can get that up and be able to see it.
Right, absolutely. It'll be a while before they get to. David Allen Jones's book, but they need to get started, and I'm looking forward to that getting squared away so that they can make progress on the movies.
Well, since you bring the movie up and all that, for the people who don't have the time to sit down for 2 hours and read a book, but spend a lot of time in their cars, October is a great month at CKP for audiobooks. Man, every book that is coming out on audio this month is a huge winner. Privateers and Pandemonium. If you want science fiction as seen through the eyes of Warner Brothers cartoons, this is definitely one you want to listen to. It's hilarious. It's a great story. And we have a reader of the audiobook who is a huge fan. So he goes out of his way to make these entertaining. So that's early October. And then we've got a Lunar Free State audiobook. We've got a Abner Fortis audiobook. And we have a Prince Hazard audiobook from Fred Hughes. So you can't go wrong with any of those.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Daniel Wisniewski, who the Privateers and Pandemonium, he did the first two of that series, Hunters and Hijinks and Pirates and Payback.
Right.
And he had a ball with each one, and he thought that it was probably the most fun he'd ever had until he did the next one, and that was the most fun he'd ever had until he did the third one. And by this time, he was completely immersed in it, and he had a ball doing it. He said the hardest part doing these for him was stopping laughing so that he could do them right.
Yeah, the only person that I could think of that could have read these and maybe done a better job would have been Bob Haskins. He's passed away now, but he was the main.
Then he probably can't do it.
He can't do it, so he wasn't available. But he was in the Roger. He was the Roger Rabbit main character, and
that would have been hilarious.
And these books remind me so much of that movie. Once again, don't get me wrong. They're good science fiction, but they are hilarious.
Right. These are humorous. They've got humor. They're fun. It's a little lighter than some of the other stuff, but well worth reading and in a great time.
Yeah, if there's a book that we've ever done or a series of books that we've ever done that really lends itself to an audiobook, this series is it.
Oh, absolutely. And Daniel's, actually, Nick Steverson, who wrote it, along with Melissa Olthoff. Nick said, "Hey, I love this guy's work. Do you think we could get him to do it?" And I was like, "Well, gosh, I've already got him doing some of the Four Horsemen books, so I actually know him pretty well, and I'll bet we could." And he did, and like I said, he had a ball doing them. So.
Well, that pretty much wraps up the month of November, and it's an incredibly dense month as far as great books, great audiobooks. There's nothing here that anybody could buy that they're not going to enjoy. So you just need to choose what flavor of the Baskin's ice cream you want to consume this month at what time. Appreciate you coming out and spending time with us and doing the podcast. And we're going to start wrapping up the year next month. And in the month of December, we'll go over a after action report for the year, and then we will look toward what we're going to be doing in the year of 2024. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and doing the podcast, Chris. Thanks, everyone, for listening to everything that's going to be coming out in the month of October. And now we get to the portion of the podcast where we get to speak with one of our authors. And we have a very special guest tonight, Carolyn Kay. She's relatively new to the CKP publishing world, though she has published for other companies in the past. But tonight we are going to talk to her about her new book, Gunpowder Geishas, which, let me tell you, is one of my favorite books this year. It hits the ground running. It is action adventure from the word go. It tells a beautiful story. And when I got through with the book, as soon as I finished the last page, I'm like, how fast can she write 5 more to tell me more about the people that I have been introduced to that I absolutely love? Thank you for coming and talking to us tonight, Carolyn.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I want to start out by saying, and I mentioned this earlier in the podcast to Chris, the whole reason that I became involved with CKP was the Four Horsemen. I read the first book and immediately went online to see if there were more. There at that time were 5 books in the series. I immediately bought all 5 of them and read them back to back and became a huge fan. And you have done something that I would have said before last month was impossible. You have written a book in the Four Horsemen universe that bears no resemblance to anything that has been written in the Four Horsemen universe before, and is carrying it in a completely new direction that is exciting and fun to read. So thank you from me personally for revitalizing a series that I absolutely love. It is a great book.
Oh, well, thank you. That's really awesome to hear. It was a really fun book to write, and actually my first foray into military sci-fi. So I'm glad that it holds up within the Four Horsemen universe, but also provides something just a little bit different for folks.
Well, it's not just a little bit different. It is really different, and it is so refreshing. There are so many things that you have done that I've not seen done by CKP and have seen done by very few other people. We have a primarily, almost completely female-driven cast and crew, all of which have interesting backstories that you hint at, except for the main character and her family, that I can't wait. And I'm hoping, I guess I'm going to start this podcast with the question that I usually ask toward the end. Please tell me there's more stories in this series that you are writing that are going to be coming out, hopefully soon.
Well, there's nothing yet. However, if other people are as excited about it as you are, then I'm sure Chris will definitely ask me to write more, but there's definitely more ideas in my head for sure.
Well, I feel confident that Chris will be reaching out to you sometime soon, because I'm super excited about it. Not that my opinion has great sway, but in my conversation with him, he's as excited about this story as I am. So I've met a ton of authors that I love over the years, but this book is tremendous. You have done such a good job.
Well, thank you. I think it's probably good that we're not on video or everybody would see me blush.
Well, they would also see me gushing, and I have no heart. So this is very unusual for me also. So let's go back and let's let you tell the listeners a little bit without spoilers. Give them your elevator pitch, your 2-minute, here's a overview. Do you think you'd like to read this book pitch?
All right. Well, my super short pitch is it's about found family, revenge, and badass women in mech suits. But without spoilers, this essentially follows a young Japanese woman named Sakura, who was born into a mercenary family. And it follows her trials and tribulations as her family tries to get started again after the Guild Wars. So this is a Phoenix Initiative novel, so it takes place after the Guild Wars. Some bad stuff happens, but she manages to find kind of her sisters in arms and some really awesome cyberpunk tech in there. And, it's hard to do this without spoilers, man.
Well, I will say this. She finds her tribe. She absolutely creates her own family. And the way she does it is amazing. And the reason that she wants this family so bad is amazing. The suits are, we've spent, 6 years learning what Casper suits can do and what their advantages and disadvantages are. You've created a brand new mech suit that has advantages over Casper's and aren't maybe as robust as the Caspers, but because of that, it allows them to do things that Caspers would never be able to do. There's a thread of honor that runs all the way through the book. You may not agree with the decisions that the characters make, but you can see the reason that they make every decision that they do. It's great. I got to quit saying that.
No, you don't. Keep on saying it. It's all good.
And then you won the lottery with one of the coolest covers that we've ever seen.
Yeah, that was fun. I really liked that cover. Chris sent me an email and said, "Hey, give me some ideas." So I actually have a Pinterest board that was all of my Gunpowder Geisha, character concepts and, just cyberpunk art and mech suits and everything. And so I sent him a couple of images and I'm like, something kind of like this. And the artist that he's got, really came through with that. So I'm really pleased with the cover.
Yeah, that's a beautiful cover. If you don't have a piece of the original artwork to hang in your house, you're missing out. Because if I was the writer of that, I would want to put it in my house.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Chris if I can get a print.
Yeah, because it's an amazing cover. Probably you and DT Reed hit the lottery this year as far as covers go. I would say that those are her cover for the next Sergey book and your cover for Gunpowder Geishas are the two best covers this year.
That's cool. Yeah.
So we know that the tribe, the family that she creates is all female. The cross between a good martial arts movie and an anime story, is that what you were trying for?
Yeah. Very heavily influenced by the Bubblegum Crisis anime.
Okay. I can see that.
Yeah. And a lot of Kung Fu theater. I actually spent a lot of time watching Kung Fu movies and jotting stuff down and trying to get choreography in my head for some of the scenes in the book, for sure. So yeah, Bubblegum Crisis meets Kung Fu Theater for sure.
And I can see the Kung Fu Theater influence. I spent a lot of hours when I was younger watching Kung Fu Theater and watching lips move with absolutely no relationship to the words that were coming out of their mouth. I can see both of those. I like the fact that you have Yakuza in the story, and that they act consistently throughout the story the way they should. They have a strict code of honor, and when they are offended or people break that honor, they do exactly what you would want a Yakuza to do. And I love the way that the Yakuza is related to her family. And I think that there's probably a whole book that you could write about, I don't know what to call her. The person who raised her's backstory. I believe there's a good story there. And that's the best way I can say it without giving our listeners a huge spoiler to the book.
Right? Yeah, definitely don't want to spoil that part. Yeah, for sure. There's probably like an entire prequel novel that could be written about a lot of that stuff for sure.
And then the other significant female person in her life, that's an amazing character that could support a series on her own.
Yeah, for sure. I love all of the characters, in my little group of geishas for sure. They were a lot of fun to write. They really kind of took a life of their own as I was writing through the story too. So yeah, they've all got some pretty interesting backstory.
Yeah. Well, I've spoken for years on this podcast consistently about two things. One is you can take a great storyteller and you can get somebody to correct grammar and spelling, but you can't take someone who has impeccable grammar and can follow all the rules of writing and who is not a storyteller and make them a storyteller. And you are a absolutely great storyteller to the point where there is a ton of visual stuff going on in your head when someone is reading your books. And that is very hard to find. I would say in all the years that I've been involved with CKP, you, Marissa Wolf, Casey Azell, John Sears, and Fred Hughes and Mark Wandry are absolutely the best storytellers that I have read in a long time. And that is a great group of people to be part of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for putting me in with all those folks for sure. Yeah, because I haven't written military sci-fi before, I devoured half a dozen of the Four Horsemen universe books. So of course I had to, I read the first one by Mark Wandry and then jumped to Marissa Wolf, the Depic stories, because, assassin cats in space.
Exactly.
Got to.
Yep.
So yeah, read a bunch of the short story anthologies, which were fantastic. So yeah, great group of people to be included in. So thank you very much.
Well, you read a lot. You read a lot like Louis Bujold also. There's humor, but there is a through line and everything is consistent. And that's what I always loved about reading like the Miles Vorkosigan stories. And this could be as good as that, I think.
Wow, thank you.
And I never
no pressure for any future stories at all.
Well,
so.
Yeah, and they need to be finished tomorrow. If I haven't made that clear, yesterday would be better, but I'll give you till tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, I'll whip something out tonight.
Please, I'll give you my email address when we're off the air. Then the second thought, which I didn't complete because I'm ADHD and I went squirrel. For me, and I don't think this is universal, but for me, I have to have characters that I would want to know. And you're lucky if you can write one character like that. And one great character is enough to support a series if it's good enough. If all the other characters in the Dresden File books were bad, you would continue to read it just to find out what Harry's doing. There was not a bad character There was not a character that you wrote in this entire book that I did not want to know more about, including, like, the brothers. I could read a whole book about the two brothers, the Yakuza brothers.
Oh, yeah. The songs.
The songs. I definitely want a book about the... how do I put this without spoiling it? The girl that Sakura spars with, that she brings into the geishas. Mm-hmm. There's probably a trilogy that you could do on her. But every character, I wanted to know the backstory. I wanted to know how they got to the part where I started reading them in your book.
Yeah, it's, I think with all of my characters, they're all people that I would love to just sit down and have coffee with. And so I think I'm hoping that that's one of the reasons why they're so engaging. It's like, these are the type of people that I want to hang out with. You know, if I were going to go spar in a gym, I'd want to go with that person. You know, if I want to be a super tech head, you know, I'm going to go with Katie. That's not a spoiler. So yeah, I don't know. Sometimes one of my failings, I think sometimes when I'm writing is I tend to fall in love with all my side characters. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I need to actually be talking about this other person over here. This book is about them, not all these other people.
Well, but then you find yourself at the end of a book, like the one you just finished, with probably at least 10 characters that you can actually write books about. So, and dear God, you know, how many times over the years has John Ringo or Larry Correia or, you know, I can give you a list of 4 or 5 different authors taken characters that we absolutely love, and you be in the middle of a chapter and all of a sudden they die and you feel like part of you has died. You know, I could almost say that about Sakura's father. You know, he was a strong enough character. He could have supported a book on his own. So, I'm really happy that you write such 3-dimensional characters that I feel invested in every single one of them while I'm reading them.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it was Kevin Eikenberry that I almost threw his Peacemaker book across the room.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm like, really? Yeah, I am not as cold-hearted as Kevin, and I owe him a beer for saying that about him, but I can't bring myself to take out anybody yet. We'll see what happens.
I think he'd agree with you. So it really surprises me that you have not written anything in military science fiction before, because you come across as a seasoned writer of that genre. So what have you written in the past? What genre, and you know, what kind of stories do you generally write?
I kind of read a whole bunch of different stuff. So I have a self-published trilogy that's steampunk fantasy. Mm-hmm. That blends kind of a, not really alternate history because it's a completely different version of our world, but blends, you know, what you think of as traditional steampunk with kind of traditional fantasy. And so that was a lot of fun. I've written I have a kind of a sci-fi horror novella that I really enjoyed, and I tried to sell it, but it was too long for most of the magazines. That one actually won a semifinalist at the Writers of the Future contest. So that was awesome. So I've written sci-fi, I've written steampunk, I've written regular fantasy, short stories and stuff. I've written Monty Python-esque short stories. I started out writing fan fiction. So my first ever foray into writing as an adult was a Star Wars Avenger crossover novel. I threw a 7th generation removed descendant of Leia and Han into the Marvel universe. She landed in Asgard and ends up in a love triangle with Thor and Loki. So,
so you do have a vivid imagination.
I do. It's weird. Some of my short stories came from, you know, kind of random things at work. Like somebody left a breakfast burrito out by the microwave for 2 days. So I wrote this short little piece about how sad this burrito was that he'd been abandoned. I wrote about somebody's organic lunch in the refrigerator decaying so long it became sentient. And got named Cecil by somebody in the office, and he, had a soapbox about, you got to eat organic. I write kind of all across the board, and from traditional kind of stuff to just kind of off the wall.
So are you working on anything now? Any novels or short stories or anything that you can talk about?
I'm not working on any. I'm working on some novel ideas because I want to expand the steampunk fantasy world a little bit. And I'm going to come up with some outlines for some more Gunpowder Geishas as well. But working on a couple of short stories for some anthologies that have calls out. I've got one. I'm working on for a familiars anthology. So I'm writing the roadkill opossum familiar of a backwoods vampire named Cletus.
That's funny.
Writing the adventures of this poor little roadkill opossum trying to keep his master, from falling into disrepair. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question that doesn't apply to anything that we've talked about so far. So years ago, probably 30 years ago, there was an anthology that was released that had a really neat idea, I thought. The guy, the editor for the anthology, he published his favorite short story. And then he called the author of that short story and asked him what his favorite short story was. And he went and carried that through for about 15 stories. It was a great book. I wish I could remember the name of it right now, but I thought it was a great idea because I always wonder, I think everything that you experience, everything you read, everything you see on TV just kind of goes and hides in a closet in the back of your head. And then when you are creative, all that clutter comes out, and that's what, kind of drives what your voice is, all the experiences and all of the things that you have accumulated to that point in your life. So I want to ask you, not a short story, but if you had to pick a book that you would just recommend to everybody because it's the best thing you ever read, what would you recommend?
Oh my gosh.
I guess I should have told you that before we went on air, so you'd have time to think about it, but maybe not.
No, it's cool. Like the first one that came to mind for me is The Mists of Avalon. That was a book for me that just completely captured my imagination. Every time I picked it up, I felt like I was watching a movie, and I really just wanted to find a way to go to that world and be a part of it. Not necessarily, all of the, Roman invasion part of it, but
right.
It's like if I could find a way to get into a fantasy world, that would be one of them.
Well, that's cool. So you would recommend The Mist of Avalon for people to read. And if anybody's interested, that's a novel that was written by Marion Zimmer Bradley back, I think, in the 80s. So I'm sure there's copies still out there because just about everything she wrote is still in print.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, and especially because movies came out, I think, in the 90s or 2000s. There was a movie that was made from it that actually was pretty good.
Oh, now that I did not know.
No, it was a miniseries. It was like a 3-part miniseries that came out.
Huh. I did not know that. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was the late 90s, early 2000s, but I think somewhere in there. So if people want to know more of what Carolyn Kay is doing, are you active on social media? I am. You can find me on Facebook. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter and Blue Sky now, I think, under Bewitching Hips. I've been a belly dancer for the past 20-something years, And so when I started all my social media, that was my moniker. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep it because it's unique and hopefully people will remember it. So.
Well, I'm sure I certainly will. And, there's nothing wrong with having something that is uniquely identifiable.
Yep. But yeah, if you find my Instagram, be prepared for lots of bird pictures. I take lots of wildlife pictures.
Yeah. Are you a birder?
A little bit. I'm lucky in that my house sits along an irrigation canal. And so we get a lot of birds and kind of your typical urban wildlife, foxes, coyotes.
That's
that
cool.
Kind of thing. So, yeah, so I can sit from my office window and take pictures of half of this stuff. So,
that is really cool. There was a great movie about 5 or 6 years ago. It starred, I think, Steve Martin, Jack Black, and a third person, and basically, it was about 3 guys who take a year off to go birding. And trying to see the most number of unique birds in a year, and it kind of followed them. For people who like birding and birds, it's a fabulous, fabulous movie. And in fact,
I'll have to check that out.
It's like my favorite. Wasn't my favorite year, but it had a name something like that. But you can Jack Black, Steve Martin. And I can't remember who the third actor is, but it is a tremendously good movie. And it's one of those movies that isn't ha-ha funny, but you laugh inside throughout the whole movie. And it's a good feel-good movie also.
Nice. I'll have to write that down and check it out.
Yeah. Let's see. So we've gone over Gunpowder Geishas. And it gets 10 out of 10 from me. I hope every single person listening to the podcast will go out and buy a copy. One of the things that I mentioned earlier in the podcast, and I'll mention with you on here also, this book is also unique as, the Four Horsemen universe has grown to the point where there's about, I think, somewhere between 80 and 90 books in the series. This is a book that you can pick up, have no idea what the Four Horsemen are, have no idea about any other book that CKP has published, and read it. It stands completely alone and tells a complete story in and of itself. And if you like it, and if you like the references to the Four Horsemen universe in the book, then you can go back and pick those up at your leisure. So this is unique in that it's one of the few Four Horsemen universe books that you can read and have no understanding of the backstory of anything that's happened so far and not miss a thing, which I should give you kudos for also, because that's hard to do, to step into an already established series and write something completely unique.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that I was faithful to the universe for sure, but also had a lot of fun, and many thanks to Chris for letting me outside the guardrails a little bit with something just a little bit different, because that was fun too.
Well, I want to conclude this by saying I hope we're able to do this again in less than a year, because there are so many questions I have that you have left in this book that I want to know the answer to. And I want to tell you what an honor and how privileged I feel that you took time out of your busy schedule and came on the podcast and let us see the beginning of what I think is going to be a great career. And I can't wait to read anything. I would read the phone book if you wrote it right now.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you so much for having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
It's my pleasure. Is there anything else that you want to say or that you want to talk about while you have an audience to listen to you? Have I missed anything?
Oh my gosh. No, I think just, when you pick up Gunpowder Geishas, be prepared to have some fun and dip your toes into a cyberpunk Tokyo, Japan.
Well, I can't recommend it enough. And like I said, I hope tomorrow or next week I'm able to find out that that another book in the series has been released. It's that good. And one more thing, for people who are interested, The Big Year came out in 2011. Serious birdwatching movie with a lot of humor in it.
Awesome. I'm writing that down.
Thank you so much, Carolyn, for coming on, and it's been a real pleasure, and we hopefully will talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the CKP Future Books podcast with host Randall Willis. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving it a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you subscribe. Show likes and channel subscriptions are also much appreciated on the CKP YouTube channel. Finally, if you'd like to know more about this author or others on the CKP roster, visit chriskennedypublishing.com. Thanks for listening to the CKP Future Books podcast. We'll see you next time.